Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hello there, friends. It is very late. It is after midnight, coming up on 1 o'clock here on the East Coast. And for some reason, I decided, I'm going to do a podcast. I haven't caught up with y'all in a couple weeks here. I know we had that awesome, JJ and Sam did the awesome live stream last week while I was at the Game Awards. I figured, let me hop in and do a quickie. We have we have a lot of stuff happening, so I figured let me go live now. I was intending to go earlier in the week, but it's been pretty busy, the reason I want to go right now actually is I set this one up on the 19th. It started on the 20th, but also on the 20th, aka Friday, we have our annual SideQuesting holiday party. And if anyone remembers last year, we went almost 4 hours and really could not stop having a good time. So we're doing it again today now, on the 20th. So definitely hop on over to SideQuesting.com. There you go, 7 p.m. SideQuesting.com or YouTube and Twitch, SideQuesting TV, and those wonderful spots. Yeah, totally late. Figured I'd go while I can, though, while I have a little bit of energy left before bedtime. I just wanted to invite everyone. We have a lot of awesome stuff that we're giving away. And if you are a dev or a friend of the show or whatever, or a publisher, and you want to give something away, let me know. Just find me on Blue Sky, and we'll get rocking. 7 p.m. Eastern time. 7 p.m. Eastern time. Me go to bed. I'll go to bed eventually, and there's zero. So oddly enough, more people viewing this podcast, this live stream at 12:46 Eastern time than at a regular evening, which is par for the course with SideQuesting. Anywho, yeah. So join us tonight, I guess, 7 p.m. Eastern time for the SideQuesting party. It will get pretty crazy. I got stories from the Game Awards that I can't wait to talk about. Some of the stuff I've been posting on the site in the Discord, but yeah, it'll be a good time. Also, I'm gonna slide up to go to home because we have a Patreon now, so definitely come check us out the Patreon if you want to support us. I gotta post, pin it to the top, but yeah, here you go. We have a Patreon now. We've launched it. Thank you to everybody who's already become a member of the Patreon. I'm kind of learning as I go along, so we're starting to sucker up. But the whole goal is obviously SideQuesting, like everything out there, costs money. But really, the rates for like hosting, for email hosting, website hosting, podcast hosting, all that has like shot up over the last couple of years. Now I can handle it all, but it definitely takes a good chunk out of my pocket. And it's getting to the point where I'm starting to think any little extra help would go a long way in making sure that I don't go broke running the website, which I already have, but whatever. Anyway, thank you to everybody who's already donated. I think it's awesome. You guys are wonderful. A bunch of folks had already messaged and sent comments in just this live feed. So want to get in a couple quick news bites. I mentioned the Game Awards. Obviously, the Game Awards happened last week. Viewership went up 31%, so it was like 154 million. There we go. Global live streams, which is this year. Last year was 118. You compare that to stuff like the Oscars and all that kind of stuff. I think the Oscars were at like 20 million viewers on TV. It's a different ball game, obviously, because typically with stuff like the Oscars, you've got multiple people in a room sitting together watching a lot of Oscar parties. It's different with television than it is with online streaming, right? But that's not, not to say that it's not a huge achievement, because it is. It when it comes to individual screens, Game Awards definitely takes the cake from that respect, at least above those other things. So I was there in person. I think next year I probably won't pay for a ticket. That shit's expensive. So I'll probably just go to LA and hang out with friends, and there's a lot of watch parties everywhere, and people actually get together in hotel rooms and hang out and watch the Game Awards or hotel lobbies. It's actually kind of a fun experience, and then just hang out and meet people and go to after parties and stuff. So worth it from that respect. So obviously, you had a lot of winners. Astrobot, I think, took the top prize. There we go. And I haven't played it yet, but everybody I know that has played it has absolutely loved it. So kudos. I'm not gonna dog anyone for liking Astrobot. Would it have been my choice? Well, you'll have to wait and see. I think next week we probably will do our games of the year, either next week or the very first week in January. We have to yet to figure that out, but that actually may end up being the same day. We'll see. But yeah, some cool, lots of cool, good announcements, I guess, good wins, and cool announcements, because there were some games that were genuine surprises. The Pac-Man Shadow Labyrinth game was wild, which is sort of I was talking to some of the PR folks there, and they're like, yeah, we can't technically say it's a Metroidvania because we're not allowed to use those words, but you market it as sort of a 2D action adventure. I get it. It's a Metroidvania. That Dispatch game was actually kind of cool. That's that sort of telephone style, where you're middle management type of thing. I thought that was kind of neat. And then you had Elden Ring, Night Rain, which is a very weird like mashup of everything. Roguelike. I think there's like some Fortnite built in there. It's only 1 or 3 players. You can't like play 2 players. So I don't know how they're going to pull this off. It's hard enough to get one other person. Sometimes to get 2 people, I do a whole 3-person. We'll see. Looked good, and apparently you fight enemies from even some of the Souls and games too. So Split Fiction, that's the new game from Hazelight, Joseph Ferris, and he was a ball of energy at the awards. The new, I think the couple that I was really excited about. There's a new Ninja Gaiden game coming out, a new 2D, I should say, Ninja Gaiden game coming out. That looked awesome. Ragebound, which sort of takes place in the same time frame as those other 2D Ninja Gaiden games from the 80s, but is now set up from the village of Ryu Hayabusa and his clan. So that'll be kind of cool. Obviously, we got the first in-game CGI trailer for Witcher 4, or thematic trailer, and then we also got Turok Origins. And I'm a Turok apologist, not from those N64 games. They did some cool stuff back in the day. Certainly does not hold up now. I've tried playing those on Switch. The controls are ass, even with the N64 controller. Sorry. So that needed to be modernized. And hey, lo and behold, they're modernizing Turok with Turok Origins and actually doing something that looks kind of interesting. Multiplayer. It's not live service. Well, I'm yawning like crazy. Whatever. It's not live service like in the typical sense, but so yeah, there's some stuff happening there. So yeah, good. I think it was a good show overall. Lots of cool reveals, lots of great wins. Great to see former SideQuesting writer, podcaster Wout head up there on the stage. He's not doing PR. He handled the PR for Balatro, and accepted an award. I'm like, well, I know that guy, Santa. I know him. So it's always cool. Kudos to Balatro for that, from the indie side. And yeah, so that was cool. But I'm back, and I'm ready to rock through the holidays, which really snuck up on us, obviously. I have a couple game reviews that I want to go over. And that was sort of the real purpose that I set up the podcast, was to go through a couple of these reviews. There is... I missed a lot of games from the 90s and early 2000s because at the late 90s I was in college, and you stuck with one game console because you couldn't afford anything else. You had the one game console back then, and you only play the games on that, and you were very lucky to purchase new games. You would have to rent stuff. So I didn't have a lot of access to the PS1 until God, probably until the early 2000s, really, and the PS1 became sort of my travel console, in a way, before the PS2 came out. But yeah, so I didn't play a lot of PS1 games. I played N64 because multiplayer, college, yada yada. One of the series that I missed out on the PlayStation, that sort of originally launched on the PS1 era, PS1, was the Legacy of Kain games. And Blood Omen was, there's a long history of these games. There's a ton of these games, and they kind of weave back and forth between all of them. Legacy of Kain, and then Soul Reaver, that sort of sub-series. There's Blood Omen and Soul Reaver. They're kind of these two sub-series that are kind of thematically and character tied and all that kind of stuff because of Kain, who's a vampire. And then they've made other stuff since then. I never played any of those games. So when I found out that they had announced the Soul Reaver games, I thought, oh, like a remaster. I'm like, you know what? I'd heard so much of these games. Let me give them a shot. Yeah, so I decided I'm going to review Soul Reaver, the remasters. Grab those codes, and I've been reviewing it on Switch. And it's interesting because the Switch has really become sort of my retro console for like playing a lot of those games. I play the Tomb Raider remasters, which controls, again, we need to really modernize controls on all these games that are being remastered and remade, because stuff has changed a lot. Technology's changed. How we interface with games has changed. Going back to a lot of this stuff is difficult. And for me, it's as difficult as having to press select on old NES games instead of the up and down arrows on the D-pad. If I have to press select to select stuff in menus, just to scroll through a menu and then start to enter, that throws me off. We are way past that. That stuff should be fixed immediately in all these remasters. Tomb Raider didn't do a great job of it. Still really weird tank controls, even when you tried to play with quality of life stuff. You can go to a previous episode and hear my thoughts on that. But the Legacy of Kain games, because they were sort of the tail end of the PlayStation 1 era, so analog sticks were starting to come to prevalence, and obviously it had gone into the PS2 era. With both the Soul Reaver games, they were a little further ahead. There's still some stuff that I'll get into here in a second, but they were far enough ahead where remastering them, you didn't have to do a lot of unnecessary things to bring them up to speed. You still have to do some stuff, but it's not like a wholesale rebuild of these games. So Soul Reaver 1 and 2, they are announced, the remaster, they come out. Like I said, I never played these games before. Back in those 90s, I was into RPGs and party games and FPS games. I'd kind of fallen out of the action stuff. I always knew they're highly regarded. I just thought I'd kind of miss them and I was never going to get back to them. So yeah, remasters come out. I'm like, okay, finally, this is the moment. I'll hop into these games. Let's do this. And I'm glad I did, because they're pretty good. They still hold up. There are issues, but they still hold up. So games from this era, we're still trying to figure out what is sort of good cohesive action in 3D, right? In action adventure games in 3D. They had nailed the 2D stuff, but moving into 3D, everybody was still trying to understand what the end users really wanted, what the gamers really wanted. And so because of the hardware of the time, the games, they weren't always the fastest. Hardware couldn't keep up with it. They had to do tricks for like loading and shifting from area to area. And they obviously weren't the most fluid because you had minimal controls. So that, like I said, that late PS1, early PS2 era was still sort of finding its place. That said, like, there are definite differences between these two games. They've improved both of them, but you can tell that Soul Reaver 2 was out later, and I think it was only a couple years later when it initially released, because it managed to get into that PS2 era, which you were always using analog controls at that time, and the hardware was much more powerful, and you could do a lot more things. So there's sort of an interweaving narrative. But these are out of the whole Legacy of Kain series, like I said, but these are the two that sort of stick out. And this was some of Amy Hennig's best like early directorial work. I think that was she this sort of launched her career in the public space among the gaming industry. Notoriety, I guess, as people really found out, like, hey, these are really fascinating stories. So when we replay classic games like this, they don't always feel great by modern standards. I kind of mentioned that before. While these are they have aged, they actually still are good to play. The biggest issue is that they're just not as fluid as I'd want them to be. This is my first time ever playing these games, so I'm coming at them really fresh, and I'm playing them as if they're being released today. Not as fluid, not as fast. There's loading issues. There's action and attack issues. The first game, they're not. Neither of these are unplayable, but the first game is a lot rougher in it and how it was put together. As a new player, though, I definitely like both of these. They're, like I said, they're notoriously linked because of how that first game ends. You can read up on that. There's a big cliffhanger, but they're different enough that they function well as sort of these unique experiences, right? So if you don't really fall in love with the first game, like I wasn't in love with the first game, I played enough of it to really kind of get the gist of what it was and what they had improved. It's the second game, Soul Reaver 2, that I thought was okay. That's this. They got it right. So both these games let us sort of unlock abilities and weapons as we progress, which is really good because that first game starts out really slow. And if you've played the Legacy of Kain or the Soul Reaver series, you know that like you're starting off with these really up close melee attacks, and it's not till you start unlocking abilities and weapons and stuff. And that takes a tiny little bit of grinding and time to get to that point. It's much quicker in Soul Reaver 2. The battle action in that first game isn't quite fun early on, but like I said, you get enough upgrades finally, and it opens up into something kind of interesting. I just didn't love doing the environmental kills in that first game because the aiming, again, the whole control issue, the aiming wasn't nailed down yet, and so it made it kind of difficult to get those environmental kills. And there are environmental kills with a lot of the different enemies, so you can sort of suck the soul out of their body easier and take them out easier. But I felt like they were, in a way, they were presented pretty well from that standpoint. So speaking of presenting, I thought I had clicked the button so you guys can see the video anywhere. Here we go. I'll play this video right here. Let it loop in the background. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it from that standpoint. Except for the environmental kills. But yeah, once you start opening stuff up, you get those neat combos. Things are pretty good. And you also kind of have to learn how to lock on. That was a little bit of a pain locking on with these games because, again, controllers have changed and it's supposed to be a lot easier. It should be a lot easier to lock on in modern games. And if you approach these as if they're modern games, you can you have to take a step back a little bit because they weren't, there's quality of life improvements, but they're still holding true to the original core of those games. And in this case, it's that gameplay mechanic, which is Raziel, kind of the lead character in the Soul Reaver series, his ability to sort of shift back and forth between these planes of existence and stuff, and how to solve puzzles related to that aspect. So, and it's kind of cool. In that first game, though, I did kind of find myself getting stuck a couple of times, even early on, because there's not a lot of like signage or markers to explain to do what's next. So you are sort of figuring things out, which is interesting from an action adventure standpoint. They don't do a lot of hand holding. Just very talky. There's a lot of narrative aspect of it, but they don't do a lot of hand holding. So they kind of expect you to figure out the lay of the land by yourself. Speaking of the lay of the land, the first game is a little more traditional. Beat a level, and there's a boss at the end. Go to the next level, there's a boss in, and there's a kind of a hub in between, but the levels sort of play out the same way. There's always this boss at the end. The second game really kind of pushes that concept a little further and focuses more on the narrative side. So you may have a level that has sort of traditional gates along the way, but it's designed in a way that it's the story pulling you along as opposed to the confines of typical level design. So I thought that was kind of neat. That was really neat, actually. Great plot, by the way. The second game, both games kind of tell that story, of Raziel. He's banished by Kain because he became too powerful, and so he got resurrected. He's out for revenge, yada yada. Visual wise, they're really clean. There's new texture maps, better resolution. Does look like they cleaned up the originals, like as opposed to wholly recreating polygons and models, and I appreciate that. Again, these are remastered versions of the older games. They want you to, especially for collectors and folks who are nostalgic, to jump into these and be like, oh yeah, now I remember. This is why I love these games, and there's I want to replay those originals, and they've really stayed true to that. Instead of, like I said, instead of rebuilding whole levels and whole areas. That being said, they did include a lot of cool cut stuff that was removed from the game. That's kind of put back in there, which is kind of cool. There's a really nice gallery with concept art. There's fan art in there, character designs, and it even kind of includes outtakes from the recording sessions. That was really fun to watch. Just a really neat idea. I love that kind of aspect. So you're watching a video of people doing these outtakes as they're doing the voiceovers and the audio and stuff. So yeah, it functions well on Switch. I got to say, I should mention that part. Very few times that I get annoyed by like light frame rate dips, but more than anything else, it was just the camera control and the camera design, the camera positioning that was getting in my way. It was kind of hard to judge how the camera was going to react if I was moving in one direction. Again, you're staying true to the classic gameplay. I understand that you don't always have to be 100% true to that era. I think, like I said, things have moved on, and that may affect the gameplay, though. Once you start doing that. So, yeah, it's a solid package for folks who are trying to get into them for the first time. Like I said, you may want to go into this knowing that they're not modern games; they're just sort of cleaned up versions of those originals, and that's fine. Like I am, I think they're fine games, for the first time. And all the extra stuff is great for folks who are fans of those games the first time around, because content, like I said, there's the art, there's the audio stuff. It's kind of a compelling package for fans. So it's a worthwhile pickup of a well-regarded series. Yeah. How I know people liked it. I put plenty of hours into both these games now, to safely say that I can appreciate the Soul Reaver games even more than I ever did. So kudos to them from that aspect. Yeah. I'm playing another game, completely different kind of game, still sort of in the paranormal type of thing, but very different concept. This game is called Cabin Factory, and Cabin Factory is a God, it's weird to explain. It's an indie game that is here. Let's loop this guy here, where whatever. First of all, it's a really cool idea for a game. It's only a couple hours long. Sort of part hidden object, part jump scare, horror. There's a little bit of humor in there, and it just works really well as a mashup. It's very basic. We're an inspector at the Cabin Factory. You're kind of watching the video and seeing a lot of this stuff. And this company makes cabins based on a very specific family's horrible story, right? And they fill it with all these horror props. And the cabins go along on these conveyor belts. And our job is to just walk up and inspect the cabin, make sure everything is proper. Now, the issue is some of these cabins may actually be haunted by this family. So, yeah, hit the green button. It's not haunted. Hit the red button on the console up front. It is haunted. So how do we know that? Well, that we have to go into the cabins and inspect them and walk around this sort of small confined area, and we have to do it 8 times in a row correctly. And and then that's the end of our workday, right? You sort of have this workday timeline. So there's sort of like a base cabin model. It's usually the first one that comes out to get you understanding what this is, which is like this 2-level house, 3-level when you include the basement, this cabin, and it's got these sort of props and like tables and chairs and a bed here and a TV there or a radio there and whatever. And it's got these almost like these frozen in time standees of these people, these like models of these people in place. It's just, mother, father, son, daughter, right? And it's really dark and gloomy when we get in there. And the more we play, the more we start to notice that things are changing. Like the more you walk around, it's like, wait, that wasn't there the previous cabin. Does it mean something? So the way we find out if a cabin is haunted or not is if we see something moving. Very simple. You'd think it'd be a very simple idea. You can walk into a cabin. If everything's still, you kind of have to be still and stare at something for a little bit sometimes, because we learn very quickly what the key points are in these cabins that we need to pay attention. Is it the bed? Like there's a bed right when you walk in. Keep an eye on that bed. I will walk up to that bed every single time. Make sure nothing is moving on the on the bed or under the bed, and go to the next thing, which is a painting, or walk around the corner and there's the mannequin of the father getting ready to eat dinner. But sometimes you walk in and you'll see everything sort of quiet and not moving, but you'll see a hand kind of reaching out from under that bed, or you'll see one of the other standees' legs kind of twitch and move, or in one case, so let me backtrack a little bit. So this is a whole story, and it's playing out via these cabins, right? And so they're sort of randomized in what order they come in, but they get more and more complex the longer we play this game. So yeah, try to get 8 right in a row, but if we don't, then we have to start all over from the beginning. So they're sort of, like I said, the base cabin model, props, and things change. Sometimes the whole cabin will be filled with like really weird stuffed animal props. Other times, we'll walk into the cabin and there'll be a radio playing in the background, sort of telling the story of what happened to this family. But it's our job to see if anything is moving. So we have to walk around, look at everything, look at the shadows, look at the backgrounds, look at the sort of statues of the families. Sometimes we'll see somebody move their head, but only every time we move the camera and we turn back to them, we'll see their head in a different position. We'll know, okay, they're moving. I got to run out. I got to walk out or run out and get to the push the button that's haunted. That's the interesting aspect, because the only actions you have in this game are this slow walk into the house. By the way, don't play on the Steam Deck. It's not great on the Steam Deck. I had to switch back to the PC, to my laptop, and play there. You walk slowly into and through the house. You can open and close doors, and then if you hold the trigger down, you can run, because you got to get out. Because if you stick around too long when something starts moving, there's a good chance that you'll get chased, and that's where the jump scares. That's where some of the freaky stuff comes out. Things will get darker because there's already some gloom in the design of the house. So as you're getting chased, you better remember where you are and how to run up the stairs or get out of the basement, or what door needs to be open to get out. And that's kind of it's definitely an interesting and sort of horror element that's applied to this. But other times we'll walk into the house and they'll be fully following us, like the minute we get in. There was one situation, I couldn't find anything moving in the house, and I'm like, all right, this cabin's green. I'm gonna go back out. As I'm walking back out to the front, I'm doing hand motions. I'm trying to explain. As I'm walking back out to the front, all of a sudden the daughter is standing in front of the door, and so I'm like, okay, the daughter's in my way, but there's no other way out, so I can't get around her. She's like the frozen statue. I'm like, okay, I can't get out. So I walk back around and I'm like, okay, the basement door is unlockable now. So I walk down in the basement, and as I walk downstairs, there's like a scene happening in the background between the mother and the daughter, and they're kind of talking about something, and I'm intrigued, so I get a little bit closer to hear what they're saying, but still trying to stay in the shadows. And then at that point, it's like, oh, they notice me. Crap. I turn around, I start booking, and run up the stairs, and then the front door is cleared. So I had to kind of see that scene take place. And there's other times I couldn't escape, that I couldn't make it up the stairs fast enough, or couldn't open the door to get out, or I kept bumping into the walls as I was trying to make my way out, or everything was dark and it was impossible to see. So it's purposefully kind of done in this sort of claustrophobic way. I mean, it's a cabin, so it's not that big, but we need to get in there. We need to quickly look around, and we need to get out. And it's because of that the size is small, and it's all about kind of speed, right? The whole game is meant to be played quickly. Get in there, check out those details, and get out. That's why I mentioned sort of like the find the details in the picture type of game. But yeah, so we might go like 2 or 3 visits in a row without seeing any movement. And there were times where I went like 2, 3, maybe even a 4th time, like, oh, nothing's moving, and then we'll start see something, or might be the opposite. We might see movement or get chased out 4 or 5 times in a row before we don't have anything happening. And it is a little bit of a roulette, and that's why there's those kind of 8 lights that take place. So it's interesting from that standpoint, but also can be kind of a little annoying if you are constantly getting spooked in there, and you just want a break and just want to get a nice, clean, silent house, because the tension can build up. So there's not a ton of stuff to do in this game. You really are just kind of walking in, and can we get 8 cabins in a row without getting caught? That's it. That's basically it. Again, there's that narrative that the more we play, the more of these scenes unfold, but they're also sort of randomized in a way. So you do want to keep going back and playing more and more, so you can pick up on these little scenes here and there. But you don't need those scenes. They're just there. It's just giving us background on the stuff that's happening to us, or the stuff that we're noticing. Like, we need to see the scene, understand why there's a hand reaching out from under the bed, or why there's a stuffed green animal floating around or something. Like, those are the scenes that give a little bit of that background information, but they are almost unnecessary from any other standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint. So yeah, game's built on tension, and it keeps building higher and higher the more we get correct, until we're at like 6, 7, or 8, and then we're being extra careful to figure out if this cabin is haunted or not. So like I said, short experience. It's a neat idea. Seems like it'd be really fun for streamers and streaming. So get your audience behind you as you're kind of going through this. It's kind of missing its window a little, because it's coming, it's coming out well after Halloween. I think it just came out like last week, like officially Friday or whatever was the drop dead date, or was the launch date. But we are in a weird season right now where you get a lot of people together. So this could be kind of fun when you're with family and you have your PC or whatever, and it's up on a screen, and everybody's sort of huddled around, and they're watching with you. Again, it's like the streamer situation in real life. I can imagine me walking through, and everybody's like pointing out, take a look at that, take a look at that. Oh my God, that was moving. That face moved. There could be something kind of cool that happens there, So I had a good time with it for the couple hours that I played, and that's really the whole length of the game, is like a couple hours. But yeah, it's super affordable. It's like $4, $3.99 or something. Again, we don't bring up prices all the time, but for a game that's 2 hours and it's sort of a meme game, and it works really well for that small of a price. I mean, it's you can't put this up against a Silent Hill, because it's not doing that, but it does have a interesting hook. So yeah, Cabin Factory. Yeah, not the Kevin Factory, as people are asking. It's the Cabin Factory, and it's pretty good. So yeah, it's fun. Like I said, it's a simple, quick game. That's all I got. Let me have talking for 35 minutes. My voice is going. I'm going to sip the rest of I have decaf coffee here, so I'm going to sip the rest of this. SideQuesting.com. You can find me at DaliDemovsky.com on Blue Sky. See, I'm a verified boy now. We're also at SideQuesting.com on Blue Sky, with just the Blue Sky account. SideQuesting TV on YouTube and Twitch, and hop into the Discord, because as some of our lovely friends in the chat over here, and I was popping up down there, have been chiming in. We're gonna get a bunch of us together for the holiday party, and it's always good. I love people. I will say this. Oh, no, you're welcome. Thank you. We've had this is like the 3rd year in a row, I think, or 4th year we did our Secret Santa, and I'm saving my gift. Mine came last week, right? Like I think it was a couple days before I flew out to LA. So I'm saving the opening of that for the show, and I think 1 or 2 other people will be as well for the Christmas party. So we'll see what shows up. But it's always fun. Good group of folks. Everybody's great. Hop into that Discord, get to know people. Hop into the Patreon. Just go to the website. I'll pin it to the top, and I'll do it in the YouTube post here as well. And donate if you can. If not, no big deal. I'm still going to pay either way. Just any little help is always appreciated. With that, see you on the next episode of SideQuest, and see you hopefully at our holiday party, apparently later tonight, in like 12, 15 hours or so, 15 and a half hours. Love you. See ya. Bye.